our country
representative
are
at
at
UN.
half-mast to mark the day of mourning for the victims of another terrorist act by the Russian Federation, commitment of which Russia just recognized in this chamber. On the night of 31st July, Russia launched a massive attack on Ukraine with 309 attack drones and 8 cruise missiles. Our air defenses intercepted most, but not all. Smoke broke through. Some broke through. Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, was the main target, with attacks also hitting Dnipropetrovsk, Poltava, Sumy, and Mykolaiv regions. As of now, at least 31 civilians, including 5 children, fell victims to the attack on Kyiv. 159 civilians, including 16 children, were wounded across the capital. One of the Russian missiles struck a multi-story residential complex in the capital. A section of the building collapsed entirely, reduced to debris and silence, along with the lives of people who called it home. Families were buried under rubble. Additionally, one private house was destroyed and over 40 civilian infrastructure facilities were damaged. This attack was preceded by another terrorist act carried out 2 days before, when Russia bombed a prison facility in the Zaporizhia region. Not by mistake. They dropped bombs from the sky knowing civilians were inside. 16 people were killed, 43 more were left wounded. These are not accidents or collateral damage. These are deliberate acts of terror by a Moscow regime that hears the world's calls for peace and responds with bloodshed. Once again, the world witnessed Russia's response to our desire for peace, shared with the United States and Europe, with new killings and more destroyed homes. It is a deliberate campaign to terrorize civilians and destroy any notion of normal life in Ukraine. This effort is propped up by Iran and DPRK in blatant defiance of numerous Security Council resolutions. These regimes supply Moscow with drones, missiles, and ammunition, while Chinese companies continue to provide dual-use goods and equipment, contributions that further fuel Russia's ability to wage war and deepen the suffering inflicted on our people. Russian regime will not stop if it's not forced to. If we fail to confront it, it will continue its aggression and illegal occupation and will commit more and more war crimes and crimes against humanity. Torture, inhuman treatment of civilians and prisoners of war, widespread sexual violence, the deportation of civilians and children, destruction of cultural heritage, acts of ecocide, environmental devastation. In the temporarily occupied territories of Ukraine, Russia is committing systematic atrocities, turning the lives of millions of our people into a living nightmare. Putin's decree of March 20 mandates the forced expulsion of Ukrainian citizens from occupied Ukrainian territories, or forces them to undergo procedures aimed at forced integration and passportization by September 10 this year. Concurrently, it is conducting forced mobilization in the occupied Ukrainian territories, and these actions are part of a genocidal policy aimed at extermination of Ukrainian people. By all indicators, the Russian Federation is an undisputed aggressor. Military full-scale invasion, direct use of military force, occupation of territories, cyber attacks on critical infrastructure, disinformation and propaganda, economic blackmail, interference in internal political processes, threats of using weapons of mass destruction, support for international terrorism, and border provocations. This list is not just a tally of crimes, it's a diagnosis of a regime that poses a threat to the entire civilized world. And this is why Ukraine requested this council meeting today. Kremlin wages this war because it sustains its regime, the war that he cannot win but refused to end. Real peace will come only through diplomacy, but backed by strength. Even Russian dictator Putin has cynically and unequivocally admitted the truth behind Russia's war against Ukraine. For the Kremlin, war is not a tragedy, it's a thrill. In December 2024, Putin remarked that when everything is calm, measured, and stable, Russians get bored. It feels like stagnation. They want, I quote, some action, or so-called движуха. This chilling confession reveals that all the justifications we have heard from Russia since 2014 are pure lies. What Putin and his criminal regime truly seek are imperial conquest, consolidation of power, and violence. Russian delegation sits in this chamber and speaks of diplomacy, while their missiles and combat drones strike people's homes, hospitals, and kindergartens. They talk about negotiations while expanding the front line and conscripting more men to die in a war of their own choosing and making. Russia awaits the international law to be defeated. They believe that the world will look away and that justice will be avoided. Don't push the horses. This will not happen. Russian illusions will shatter against the unbreakable resilience of Ukrainian people. Russian illusions will shatter against the unyielding will of the international community, because we stand united in defense of justice and freedom. Mr. President, Ukraine will continue to fight for its people, for its sovereignty, and for its future. Our goal remains a comprehensive, just, and lasting peace rooted in the principles of the United Nations Charter. President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, is ready to meet Putin, since all actual decisions in Russia can be made only by him. During the last meeting with the Russian delegation in Istanbul on 23 July, we proposed to organize such a meeting before the end of August. But no progress has been made. We understand who makes the decisions in Russia and who must put an end to this war. The world understands.
I'm only in my 20s, but I already have savings for a car.